Hey everybody, last time I worked on this chainsaw was actually well over a month ago. It's actually the end of August. It's going to be, I think, September 1st or 2nd on Monday. And what ended up happening last time I worked on this chainsaw was I ended up finding that the carburetor did have a blockage. Must have been a blockage somewhere, because after I finished reassembling it the second time, I got the saw to start and it seemed to be running okay. The idle was a little high, and I didn't think anything of it. And I went to work and started cutting some logs up. And after a while of running the saw died and wouldn't restart. And when I took my hearing protection off, I quickly realized that the saw was way too hot. It had severely overheated. And much to my dismay, at that point, I had realized that I had messed with the air-fuel mixture setting on the carburetor when I was messing with it before I found the blockage. I never went back and properly reset that. So I now believe what I ended up doing was, I believe that I ended up using the saw with that screw turned in too far and the saw running way too lean, which is why A, it was idling way too high, and B, why it probably was running way too hot. So it was so hot that when I shut the saw off and I tried restarting it, I could actually hear almost like a snap, crackle, pop kind of a sound or sounds coming from the carburetor. I think the fuel was actually just vaporizing on contact. It was so hot. So did a big mistake there. And I tried, after the saw cooled off, I tried restarting it and it wouldn't restart at all. So now with fall only a few weeks away and wood cutting season starting, because it gets nice and cool, I'm going to really want this saw working. So I need to try and figure out what's going on with it. There's also a second mystery with this saw that I've never understood. I don't know, sometimes I actually thought I was just losing my mind, but it seems to me that every time I go to pick up this saw and use it after it's been sitting for a while, I find the fuel tank empty. And I've never quite understood why that is. Now, on several occasions I just summed it up to, well, you know, it was, I ran out of fuel and I was pretty much done doing what I wanted to do, and rather than put fuel in it for storage, I just put it away empty. But it's got to the point now where I've got a pretty good recollection of several times where I still had fuel in the saw when I put it away, and it's bone dry. So I've always wondered what the heck's going on there. Whether or not there's some kind of a weird siphon action that was happening and somehow empties the tank, but then where's the fuel go? I mean, I guess it could just be going out slowly onto the ground or evaporating in the air. But so first thing I've got to do today, to see if it's going to even do anything, is put some more fuel in it. Well, at least I do use, or I am using pre-mixed fuel, 50 to 1, with a good grade of two-stroke oil in there. So, in a perfect world, this saw should start fairly easily, even if it was run out of gas. That's a good sign. Well, while they're getting my hearing protection for me and hearing protection for themselves, I'll say that the fact that this thing is running and idling means that I didn't destroy my saw. So now I'm going to test and make sure that it's still working properly, full off. so that actually seems like it's fine, but I am going to, now that I get the saw running again properly, I am going to go back and just tweak my air fuel mixture. Alright, so now I'll reset that air fuel. Should do it. I'm going to resharpen my chain, and I think I'm going to be all set. So I guess this is going to be a really short part too. Oh well. Hey, you know what? I know what I'll do. I'll give you a sneak peek at another project. Alright, so here's another acquisition. This is a Husqvarna 272 XP. This was a very expensive saw when it was new, and this is a big saw. And this saw actually belonged to a neighbor who is a great neighbor to have, because he's also the same neighbor that I got the Oliver 770 from. And I pretty much got this under the same situation. Basically, if I want to drag it home, it's mine. He's used this saw quite a bit. And he got to the point where he treated himself to a new saw. And so then this thing was sitting out in his yard, kind of tucked up under his deck, and in a mess of pine needles and a mess outside. I happened to spot it, and you know, just kind of mentioned it, and next thing you know, he's like, well, yeah, you know, you want it, you're gonna have it. So he doesn't recall blowing it up or anything like that. So this might be something that just needs a little TLC, and might actually be able to be resurrected. If I get this saw fixed, this will be my largest saw. Well, this will be my largest saw for practical wood cutting. I will show you one other thing. Alright, so I guess this would actually probably be the largest saw that I own, but it's not very practical. This is a saw that was, those of you who have seen some of my Saved from the Scrapper series, this is from the same gentleman who was a neighbor of mine who had passed away, and he was a retired machinist, and they were throwing out stuff, and this was actually destined for the trash, and I rescued it. This saw, I remember him using this saw. This is the grand old daddy of chainsaws here. This is a Pioneer. I think it's IEL, it says, Pioneer. I think this is a Canadian company, if I recall correctly. I think I already did some research on this. Here's a label over here. Industrial Engineering Limited, British Columbia, product of Canada. So this is a saw back when men were men. Anyways, this is kind of a novelty thing for me. I'm just gonna clean it up and just kind of get it running just for giggles, but I really don't want to use this saw. For one thing, it's heavy. I mean, this, yeah, I mean, it's quite a bit heavier than this saw, which is sizably, you know, it's a good sizable saw with some horsepower to it. And I wouldn't be surprised at all if this doesn't have as much power as that, even though it's that much bigger. This has got a diaphragm type carburetor on it. I haven't seen this particular model yet in my searches online. I did see another model made by this company that had a whole deal with a whole back swiveled, I think. So this is an interesting saw, to say the least. I'm not sure what the deal is with this hole. It appears as if there was some kind of handle maybe that clamped in there. I'm not sure what the purpose of that hole is. It's a through hole. And I'm not sure if this is a homemade guard on here or if this is exactly how this was, just open like that. But that's a heck of a saw there. I'll show you my other Husky just for the heck of it. This is my other Husqvarna. This is a Husqvarna 50, model 50. This is, you can see the cobwebs. I haven't used this in a while. This is the saw I use when I've got larger logs to cut in that. The only reason I don't use this saw all the time is because it's significantly heavier than the little Stihl here. So I like this saw for taking branches and stuff off, trimming up trees, limbing them. But I've got something sizable tree that needs to be felled, or good sized logs to be cut up. This is the saw I've been relying on up until now. I can't say enough about this saw. I bought this saw at a country auction. Probably 20 or more years ago. Actually, over 20 years ago, I bought this saw at an auction used. This saw has never failed me. This saw, I've never had to take the carburetor on the saw apart. I've stored gas in this saw all season, which when I cut wood, I don't cut wood for long periods of time. So this thing probably sits 9, 10, 11 months of the year sometimes with the same gas in it, and just continues to be a good, dependable starting saw and running saw. It's kind of funny because if you're looking at brands, most guys will probably tell you that Stihl's #1 and Husqvarna's #2, and this is from a layman chainsaw user's point of view, of course. I'm sure there may be other professional saws out there that I'm not considering. Stihl now has like another line of saws that's more geared towards the non-professional. And I don't really have much to say about that. I do know that on the non-professional series of saws, they came out with this chain tensioner mechanism that is basically supposed to make it real easy to retighten the chain. But I talked to a guy at the service department at a local Stihl dealer, and we were talking about that, and he said, yeah, that's great for the homeowner. He said, but the reality is it's another thing that can break on you. And he said, this old design here with the 2 nuts and the adjusting screw, he said, is in his opinion, is far superior because this just doesn't break. So anyways, that's the Stihl. And so now this is going to be, you can see the difference there. I don't know what the displacement is on these saws or horsepower or anything, but you can just see it's a step up. It's the 272 XP. I had already mentioned that. I don't know how this stacks up to like the Farm Boss or something like that, but I'd say it's probably pretty close. But so hopefully at some point we'll get to a series where I mess with this. And what's the beauty with this is that because I got it for free, I'm not opposed to putting a little bit of money into it and turning it into a nice, a nice running saw. The bar is rusty, but I'll put a brand new bar and chain on it if everything else pans out with this saw. Alright, so I'm going to rack this segment up right here, and I'm going to get something to drink. It's hot and humid here in New England. Take care. If I'm standing right here, can you see me fine? Mm-hmm. Okay. Do I look fantastic?
Sure.
Okay.
You look blurry.
Blurry?
In that picture.
I look blurry in that picture? You look blurry to me now. It's so hot out here. Yeah, I've got a stain right here from sweat. On camera, this might, if anybody sees this stain, they're going to think that I was a slob. Like Aiden, when he eats and all the food goes on his shirt? Right? How embarrassing is that?